Well, welcome back, my voluptuous vault-dwelling companions. In the last two episodes, we have created a self-sustaining vault for the most part, though we still have a lot, and I do indeed mean a lot of work to do on it, as well as our land in front of the vault's entrance, which at the moment appears to be occupied by a trader. Let's go see what they have to sell. After speaking with the trader, it would seem that they only have a few Brahmin to sell, and they don't actually accept the NCR dollar, and they accept caps, which is quite an interesting feature, I must say, but also means we can't purchase any of these Brahmin, so moving on. Today we're truly going to begin by expanding our hydroponics area, which currently doesn't actually have any hydroponics and only has some simple planters inside of it, but nevertheless, I digress. We are expanding it to include more of these planters. That way we can grow more food for the entire vault. I've also left some room in this general area of the mountain to spare in case we end up inevitably expanding it once again. As with most situations and places, many more people means many more mouths to feed, of course. Now you might be asking, Rat Papa, why in the hell are you expanding that growing area when you're already growing food outside? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because, my dear friends, we are no longer going to be using this area for our chunk storage when we go about cutting stone chunks into blocks, nor are we going to be using it for growing anymore either. Last episode, I asked you guys if we should go about creating a city for hospitality out front front of the vault, and you guys spoke. Many of you spoke, and many of you think that this is a great idea, so that is exactly what we are going to be accomplishing here today, and that's why we had to move our food growing inside. Now, we are going to be growing different types of food inside, and beets is not one of them, as unfortunately it's not an option in the planters for some reason, but it is worth noting that all of these sun lamps are going to start sucking up a lot of our power. That's an issue for the future, though. For right now, here in the present, we are going to be working on our very first business in this small, cramped little town that we're building in front of the vault, which is actually going to need a name. If you guys would like to come up with some of those in the comment section as well, I would really appreciate it. As you can see, and probably have guessed, our first and currently only business is going to be something of a small hotel for the Wastelanders, sticking with a very Wasteland theme of just kind of sticking a bunch of different materials together to make a little rudimentary shack. I know it might look a little odd, but in a Wasteland sense, it's actually kind of beautiful. I'm hoping you guys agree. Now, outside this hotel, we are actually going to be working on something of a camp with plenty of tents, but to go about building those tents, we're going to need some waste leather, so we've hunted a bunch of animals out in the wasteland, such as waste boars and what have you, as you saw there, and we are going to be butchering them for their sweet skin. Naturally, these tents are going to be much cheaper than the bedrooms inside the little hotel itself, with those beds being about $20 and the tents outside being $10, as it's as low as we can go. As we continue improving those, though, we might end up raising the price on them. We'll have to see what type of furniture we can make out of scrap first, though. But for now, I think these accommodations should be more than sufficient. This should be just about large enough for us to house an entire trade caravan that might be coming in to sell us some stuff, and they don't want to leave due to a rad storm that's coming through the area or something like that, and we can actually rent out these rooms, making a pretty penny off of them. Now that our first business is completed, we're going to begin some new research, with that being General Atomics reactors. As mentioned, we are using up a lot of power in the vault, and expanding a city out in front of the vault is going to use up even more power, so we need some good power generation other than wood and chem fuel generators, of course, which we'll still be using as our backup. And as we're researching, we're also going to be giving our little waste rat a proper name. There were many good names in the comments, I have to say. I especially liked Adam, and I also liked Knight, and I had saw some other really great ones, but I am going to be going with Rat Meat, which also was suggested by quite a few people. Now, the reason I'm not saying names is because all of you guys were absolutely killing it with suggestions and names, and it would take me forever forever to name off everyone who suggested these names, so I apologize, but just know that I'm very grateful to all of you. Some time later though, and we had noticed some smoke billowing from a nearby area next to the river just up the road from us. It would appear that there is a faction bombardment. Essentially, two factions are warring with each other in the area. So we decided to send out a small caravan to take a sneak peek, to maybe just be a bit nosy and at least see what's going on. We had arrived some time later, and from the distance it appeared to be the NCR fighting with a group of soldiers. These were no raiders, as they had black armor. We were somewhat unsure as to who they were exactly, as they seemed pretty well trained and well coordinated. Perhaps the Overseer might know. We'll ask him when we go back, but as for right now, there was an absolute bloodbath going on. There were a lot of people dying on both sides, and they continued their fight as they both began to flee the area. The killing never stopped until they were out of eyesight and also out of earshot, where we couldn't hear their rifles going off anymore. Hard to say exactly who ended up winning in the end, but based on all of these soldiers with some good tactical gear, I would say that we may have come out victorious ourselves. Not only did they have good armor, but they also had a lot of meals and also a lot of weapons, many of these weapons being laser-based, and they also had quite a few drugs lying around as well. We would stuff literally as many of these things onto our backs and into our pockets as possible before returning home. Thankfully, our Deathclaw managed to carry quite a bit back home for us. Also, apparently the Overseer said that this might have been the Enclave, as they're the only ones, or at least one of the only few, that would have this type of weaponry along with him. Nevertheless, it would appear that we have the lasers now, and I don't think we'll be hurting for weapons anytime soon. The Overseer had us running many a firing drill with these new weapons, and at first we thought that this might just be so we could get better acquainted with laser technology, and it might have partially been that, but he seemed quite concerned about the Enclave. Rightfully so, I would say. If they can stand up to the NCR, what could they do to us? We would continue forward with our progress though, actually deconstructing many a nuclear waste barrel in the area. Reason being, we could get some sweet succulent steel, which we need to continue furthering our vault, but we also would end up getting some uranium, which would come in handy in the future. We were also mining out every last single vein of steel that we could find on the outside of the mountains, as well as on the inside, of course. And speaking of mining on the inside, we started expanding out the vault for a large new room, of course, in the southern section. But this was interrupted, unfortunately, once we detected a small group of raiders entering the area. We thought, well, there's not that many of them, surely we can take them quite easily. However, it would seem that one of them has come equipped with some makeshift power armor, as well as dual-wielding some pipe SMGs. We'll need to be extremely cautious here. We formulated a plan. While these raiders are planning out their attack against us, we would begin planning out a preemptive attack against them as well, arriving in a valley nearby, preparing for our assault against them. As we began to approach, unfortunately, we're not all that stealthy, and they noticed us ahead of time before we would have liked. So we opened up a can of whoop-ass and began pouring on a barrage of laser fire. Thanks to our lasers being heat-based damage, we could easily burn through their scrap metal armor. Our Deathclaw put a quick big dent right in that power armor, and a laser from behind finished him off. And he would also end up finishing off the last remaining raider by crushing his sternum with a large piece of concrete on the end of some rebar. And with that, it would appear that we've won with some pretty minimal injuries, although a few of our fine folk did end up needing some of their stim packs. I think we'll be fine, no worries. It was a real shame we didn't take this fella alive though, as that power armor would have been quite useful, even if just the frame. Oh well, we'll eventually come into contact with some. Maybe we'll buy it, maybe we'll take it. As we were returning home and healing up from our injuries before our next big construction project, we finally finished up our extensive research into General Atomics reactors. Ironically, we ended up finishing the construction of our new room that we were digging out after this research was completed, which is ironic because it's going to be our laboratory. Now, we are going to be doing research here. We're going to be working on some different vault tech here like Pip-Boys, and we might just be doing a few experiments in the future. We'll see what happens. For now, though, I did want to put a pretty heavy focus on completing our power generation with our General Atomics reactors, but the thing is, we need advanced components and also plasteel, two things that we no longer have after creating our first Pip-Boy at the end of last episode. So we're gonna need to trade for some. There's no doubt in my mind that the NCR has the materials that we need, and they would be more than tickled to trade for them. The problem is we don't have enough money, NCR currency, to purchase them, so we're actually going to start refining some insect jelly, since there is just an overabundance of it in the area, into chem fuel, and we are going to be taking this chem fuel to the NCR, as I'm sure they have generators and vehicles that require it. We would set out on this trading journey late one night under the cover of darkness. We had to be quite careful, as we had our Deathclaw loaded up with a lot of chem fuel, and if a raider were to get the Molotov cocktail just right, they would probably blow us all to hell. Eventually, though, we arrived without issue and began our trade with them. As I'm sure you can see, we not only sold them chem fuel, but we also sold them a few other things like different textiles that we had, waste leather, plain leather, so on and so forth. And after returning home, we had plenty an NCR dollar now, as well as our plasteel and the advanced component that we needed. We also ended up getting a pre-war industrial radio that I think was either refurbished or created after the war, but nevertheless, we can now enjoy some sweet tunage here in our dining room. But damn it, that radio requires power. Focus, Rat Daddy, focus! We need to work on the generator. You're probably screaming at your screen right now. Well, not to worry, my friends, as the Overseer Boland has this under control, and we would end up finishing our new General Atomics reactor, and it's also in this teeny little room here that's not too far from other things. Let's hope that it doesn't go haywire and explode. I'm also not going to be getting rid of our chem fuel and wood-fired generators for the time being, not only because eventually we plan on using the chem fuel ones for backup power, but also because right now I don't think that this reactor could really fuel our entire vault, but also the city. Thankfully, we got this completed just in time before our very first visitors, who were going to be staying in our little hotel from the New California Republic, had arrived, each of them paying their 20 buckaroos for a nice room. And to my surprise, after staying a night or two, they were absolutely amazed by our hospitality, giving us a damn near perfect score. Thank you very much. I suppose it doesn't take much in this new world in the Wasteland. Just basically don't try to kill them and let them have a bed and you're good to go. Seems like nowadays most folks really struggle with the first part of that. Yeah, not trying to kill each other. That's kind of an issue for them. But we are going to be building a civilized town here, a civilized society, by golly. Something I wanted to mention, and I know a lot of you guys have said that this is a good idea that we could do, is that we're going to have the city essentially outside here, the little town for most Wastelanders and blah blah blah, and for businesses, but on the inside for the fancy and top tier high clientele, perhaps we let them stay inside the vault. Now, if we do that, I don't think we're going to be renting out rooms inside the vault, at least not like renting it out for the night, but, you know, renting out a spot in the vault like a tenant. Let me know what you guys think about that, though. It seems like a lot of you already have, and you like that, so I just want to make sure. Now then, for our next research project, we're looking into Vault Tech synthread production. This will allow us to make synthread, of course, but just as well allow us to create many different types of Vault Tech certified cloth that we might want to use for day-to-day wear, or even different types of armors, perhaps. This research, being what it is, also means it's going to take quite a while. So, in the meantime, we are instead going to be working on our little cramped town here in front of the vault once more, as this research is being being completed. In particular, we are going to be working on the centerfold building, the flagship of the town, if you will. A bar, a nice bar where you can get some good poker in, and just as well also maybe have a few brewski with the boys, and you know, maybe you could do some jet or something. Hey, I don't judge as long as you're a paying customer, you know what I'm saying? And also as long as you keep that shit outside of the vault, okay? But genuinely, I think the bar is going to be our money maker, and if somebody's not really all that pleased with our accommodations over at the hotel, we send them to the bar, they get a little drunk, they come back and they think, hey, sleeping on those bed bugs and irradiated rat roaches ain't such a big deal after all. I also built 2 smaller buildings to the south. One of them is definitely going to be a general store, and right now as I narrate, the other one I'm not too sure about, as I'm going to begin focusing on the inside of the vault once more. That's right, we're actually going to be switching up our meal production from normal simple meals to Vault-Tech meals. Now, this might just seem like a brand type of thing, like, oh, okay, you're building a vault, Rat Daddy and Overseer Bolin, so you gotta make vault meals. Actually, there's a pretty big benefit. You see, my friends, a normal simple meal takes 10 ingredients. We're talking meat, vegetables, whatever, right? And it makes one simple meal. Well, that's fairly simple, no pun intended. But with Vault-Tech meals, it takes the exact same amount of ingredients, and with that, somehow, with the efficiency of Vault-Tech, I guess there's nothing going to waste, you can make 2 meals. Yeah, pretty incredible, huh? The only question I really have is why the hell didn't we start doing this sooner? The same amount of ingredients for double the food? That's really going to help us out as we continue growing our population larger and larger. Speaking of, as we've been mining out some residential housing sections and rooms for our residents inside the vault, we have also been leaving a bit of room to the north here and there where we're trying to designate some more areas. All this to say that above some of the houses for everyone and rooms they're going to be staying in, I'm also digging out an armory. I wanted this near where everyone's rooms were, that way if we need to rush to get some weapons and armor quickly, we can do so, of course. I also felt that this was currently very, very much needed at the moment, because after we ended up collecting all the weapons and what have you from the battle between the Enclave and the NCR, we had eaten up a lot of our storage where we normally keep resources, so this will really help us prioritize and manage that. And it would seem that we finished it just in the nick of time. Just as soon as we were done loading all the weapons into there, we also finished up a research into Vault-Tech synthread production, now allowing us to make some proper Vault-Tech helmets and security armor. Though they do require plasteel, so we probably won't be making any right now, but in the very near future, of course. And with that, it would seem that we have our second group of visitors and/or customers from the New California Republic who are coming to enjoy our nice, spacious, quaint hotel. In the process, forking over quite a bit of dough to do so. Even so, though, with all this in hand, there's always room for improvement, and one improvement that we've yet to make that is quite crucial to mobility and maneuvering around this little cramped town is going to be some proper roadways. Nothing too fancy, of course, just some shabbily poured concrete walkways. We never claim to be a mason of any sort. We are simply vault dwellers doing vault dweller things, and we don't exactly specialize in the outside, even though that's where we're all from. Funny enough, we were beginning to run a little bit low on resources. One in particular, one that I never really thought that we would run low on: pre-war scrap metal. And to go about acquiring it, it was quite simple. We just went out and started beating the absolute shit out of some pre-war structures like military vehicles and things of that nature. Now, why do we even give a shit about scrap metal like this? Surely we could make furniture out of something better like we did inside the vault, you're probably asking, and yes, you are correct, but this metal in particular is actually going to be used for our turrets. If you remember correctly, scrap turrets are the only type of turret that we currently know how to make. for now. Eventually, I would like to build some proper turrets, some type of military grade, or really just something better than scrap, inside the vault for sure. On the outside in this little crap city here, maybe not. We'll see. Speaking of which, it is time for us to work on our third business of the city. We are going to be installing something of a general goods store where people can come in and purchase things like steel and logs and maybe drugs and maybe weapons. Who knows? It's a general store. Really just whatever we have on tap. You know what? Scratch that on the drugs. No, not because we're not going to sell them. We definitely are if we can make some money on them, but I've decided to make a pharmacy, you could say, in the store here on the left. As for right now, we only have some Addictol to sell, but I think that'll be fine. Oh, calm down. Don't worry. It's, prescription. Yes, yeah, that's it. Prescription. And with this fourth and final business, my friends, I think our little teeny town here, teeny city, I guess we could call it, a very cramped little settlement in front of the vault, is indeed finally finished. For now, that is. If you guys would like, I could always expand it more, but I do think maybe we should try to focus on the vault a little bit more. We need to take care of our own before we start taking care of the Wasteland. Speaking of, it would appear that the NCR has yet another prisoner exchange caravan coming to the vault, and we have decided to once again purchase somebody their freedom by the name of Gerbil. That's, interesting, and you have quite the interesting haircut, it would seem, as well. Never mind your goofy mop atop your head, it would seem that you are quite proficient in mining, just the type of fella that we needed. When asked how he got so good at mining, apparently he says he was abducted by aliens as a child and was a deep space mining slave for them. Okay, Gerbil, they didn't tell me you were a comedian. Now take your sweet little tookus inside and give yourself a proper haircut. You're making me look like a fool. Ooh la la, now we're talking. You remind me of someone, but I can't put my thumb on it. He looks like the Vault Boy. Now, I know this might seem a little generic, but I did do it on purpose. You see, Gerbil here is going to be our bartender when he's not mining, of course, and as thus, we want our brand and our image here in the bar to be that of Vault Dwellers, and who is more so a Vault Dweller than the Vault Boy mascot himself? I know, the Overseer is a marketing genius, you don't have to tell me. But as Gerbil is tending to the bar and handing out beers, we now have a large group of man-hunting Deathclaws that have entered the area. Quite concerning, as you might imagine, as we've never had to deal with an entire pack of them before. Well, there's always a first time for everything. Here's hoping that our traps and defenses can hold out against them. It would appear that they've completely steamrolled through our entrance. Thankfully for us, as they're traveling through our tiny town, the NCR caravan is still here, and they didn't mind helping us out, mostly because their survival depended on it as well. With their assistance and a little bit of extra elbow grease on our part, we would eventually laser these behemoths into the ground. I remember a time when we were so fearful of these creatures. How the mighty have fallen, eh? I mean, they are still pretty scary, I guess. Kind of. And as a gesture of goodwill and good faith, we would even rescue the NCR soldiers from the prisoner exchange who were mauled by these great big beasts. Not only because they helped us out quite a bit during the battle, but also because their government is like our one and only ally. So, you know, I mean, really, the least we could do is send them back home in one piece. Well, as close to one piece as we can get them, that is. You always have to remember, though, there's always a bit of good in the bad. For example, all those NCR soldiers were mauled by Deathclaws, and a couple of them even died, but we didn't die, and also we get a lot of meat from these Deathclaws, as well as lizard skin. Lizard skin, which in turn we would end up using to weave a great big beautiful green rug in the Overseer's bedroom. See? Positive thinking. But with that, my friends, we had set out to build something of a small town slash city, or I really can't determine the terminology for sure that I plan on using, as it's not really a city. It's actually pretty small, but with our vault, it is a great big city, so blah 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 blah. Anyhow, we ended up achieving our goals for the episode, and I am pretty pleased, and I believe that this is where we part ways for the day. I do truly hope that you have enjoyed this episode, and remember, if you have any suggestions for what we should do in the vault in terms of our experiments, in terms of our city, in terms of, well, just anything throughout this series that you would like to see, be sure to leave that in the comment section down below, even if you just have name suggestions, mod suggestions, any and all suggestions, feedback, blah 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 is always welcome. I've said blah 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 quite a bit in this episode, so I apologize, but just know that I really appreciate everyone's feedback and suggestions in terms of, well, everything like I mentioned. So thank you guys ever so much, and once again, thank you for watching. I do truly hope you've enjoyed. I love you, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.